The music has stopped, so I guess that means we need to start. A few more people coming in. Come on in. Lots of room up front. You'll be much closer to the action if you come up here. In the sessions I've hosted, I've asked everybody to turn around and wave at the camera because there are 100 and some people out there. So welcome you folks also. Today we're going to be talking about metadata. Imagine that at a conference on data. The impact of metadata on data quality. And it's going to be a very good presentation. I know Lisa, Dr. Ehrlinger is here to talk about metadata. She's from the, and I'm not sure I'm going to get it right, the Software Competence Center in Hagenberg. Is that right?
Right.
SCCH. And if you have questions or thoughts during the call or during the discussion, please raise your hand and I'll come to you. Lisa's offered to answer things during the conversation. If we want to wait till the end, that's fine too. But this can be interactive. I'll have 2 microphones and I'll be running around and trying to keep up with you. And at the end, we'll definitely do a Q&A. So with that, I'll hand it over to Dr. Ehrlinger.
Great, thanks. Thanks so much for having me here. I'm really excited to be back at the symposium in person after just attending online. And to the online audience, hi. It's really, I encourage you to visit Boston or Cambridge next time in person, like lots of people passionate about data to connect with. So maybe just to give you a little bit of context or also metadata about me, about my context, what I work on. I'm research team lead. Thanks for the introduction on at the Software Competence Center in Hagenberg. And what we do is to partner up on the one hand with academia, with universities, for example, like University of Little Rock or also University of Linz, where actually in this collaboration, many of this research on metadata has been done. And on the other hand, we collaborate with companies, with partners from industry, where we really get these really nice use cases and we can work on to create solutions for the practice. But before going too much into the detail, I really would like to tell you a little bit about what metadata is actually about. So this is 25. Do we know anything about it? It's a number. Yeah, great. Absolutely right. Positive number. I think we come to this actually later. But we definitely know it's not the street number of Hyatt Regency because if someone knows it's 575. Yes, exactly. Is it the price of my lunch? No, it was for free. Do we know is it a temperature? It's just too cold. But we realize we do not really know which unit has 25. And, sorry, this is when we talk about data. And data are basically symbols, signs, or facts. But what we really need is to draw conclusions about this data. And therefore, we need to know, okay, maybe we know 25 is actually temperature of degree Fahrenheit. We know it has been measured in Boston, but definitely not today. No. Somewhere in winter when it was really cold. And thanks for the hint, it was an integer, actually positive one. And this is when we talk about information, which is data plus semantics, data plus metadata. And while we as humans, we know 25 Fahrenheit is pretty cold, yes. We need a jacket to go outside. Humans can ask, okay, what do you mean by 25? Is it the temperature? Is it Celsius or Fahrenheit? This is very crucial for us European, for example. This is possible for humans, but not for machines. Machines at the current stage, they take the data at hand, they take the data, they get as input, and they draw conclusions out of it. And therefore, it's really critical for any analytics use case to provide as much metadata to the data as possible to get valid and comprehensive results. So let me start off with one example. Before, on my talks 2 years ago, I talked about data quality. This is still in here. But why did we came to metadata? So it's a natural fit. If you come to the question, how can we measure data quality, you cannot get around in, okay, how does my data look like? How it is connected? What is the context for it? And one of my long-lasting research collaboration was with Pira Innovation GmbH. It's the data science company of Pira Holding. Maybe you know them from the orange motorbikes. So they're from manufacturing. They build motorbikes in Austria, but they're a worldwide acting company. And with the data science department, they came to us and said, well, we have great models. We want to analyze our data. But what at that stage when we began with the project was not really possible in like automatically finding all the data you really would like to. And as just a very high-level use case, you could ask the question, okay, I would like to have all my warranty claims for a specific bike model, for a specific part, to track down errors, to improve the production process, to like do real data science. And so this was the basic motivation around like, okay, how can we resolve it? And our colleagues, our data science colleagues at Pira, they said, well, we have purchased this data catalog. It says it does metadata management. It says it solves our metadata management problems. And this was the reason why we started to begin also from the research side to realize what are the components a data catalog tool or a metadata management tool needs actually to fulfill the expectations by the customer. And so I would say a data catalog is actually the connection between people and data. And that's crucial to know. Because on the one hand side, on the left hand side, we have the IT infrastructure. We have all these distributed databases. They're usually not located only at the manufacturing side. They are, for example, coming back to the examples, the warranty claims are entered by different dealers at different sites. So we all know these problems. Data is distributed all over the world. And this is where the first pillar, namely technical metadata management, comes into play. And I think this is one aspect or one pillar current data catalogs are really good in. Like they can automatically collect and create all this technical metadata, put it in one central repository, and then you think, oh wow, yeah, I have all this metadata in one place. But what do I do with it? I think we all know this is like a lot of information, like very overwhelming to humans. And that's why we think, okay, what does the business needs? We've seen before a model of a warranty claim and of a motorbike. This is not how it looks like in our databases. But this is what business people, domain experts and data scientists would like to see it. And this is the reason why we also need business metadata. And one thing like that really have to be aware is that business metadata is manual annotation. It will reside manual annotation by humans because humans need to provide that input. And I think the goal here is really to provide a domain-specific high-level view for the users in the company on all their data sources. But this is not the end, of course. Like having the business view and the technical view on the one side and on the other, it's nice, but we really get the most value out of it by connecting both. And here, this third pillar of metadata management comes into play, namely data responsibility roles. And to make it all complete, data catalogs are also said to be fair, or they should be fair. What does fair mean? I also put here the website for the Go Fair principles, but maybe raise the hand who has heard of the FAIR principles? Quite some. Nice. So this is actually fulfill requirements for data catalogs, which means you want your data to be findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. And there is a list online on the Go Fair Principle website. You can check that out, and it's also nice. I think in the future it will be even more important because companies want certificates. Okay, is my data fair? Can I show, for example, in Europe, like for European projects, you need to verify the fairness of your data. I think you can do that with certain data catalogs. So this is just actually an example about the difference of technical and business metadata. I think I have already explained it a little bit, but to make it more clear, on the left-hand side, we have the part that is responsible in the responsibility of the IT department. It's about technical data assets, where we have, for example, a production ID, which is, we know it's unique, it's a digit, it's an integer, it's maybe a positive integer, and so on. And on the other hand, we deal with concepts that are understood by humans. For example, an example would be the active days, which is the number of days a user spends within an application. And if you want to dig deeper into that, check out my CDO magazine article here on the difference between technical and business metadata, and also how to connect them. So coming back to the data catalogs, as we said, our company partner, and I think many other companies, they purchase a data catalog and they have specific expectations about it. And this is why we had a look. Like, this list is by no means exhaustive. I think you just go out the aisle and look at all the vendors. Like, there are many great other vendors out there. Like, I also talked to Data Galaxy and many others. They have great solutions, but these are the tools we stumbled over through our projects. And here you already see there is a different focus in the different tools. So while Data Hub is a extreme example for focusing on the IT people, focusing on fast-changing technical metadata, like Informatica Elation, there's still more on technical side, like purely the data catalog tool. And on the other hand, there are tools also like DataSpot, which might not be that well known. It's a European tool, it's a tool from Austria, and it focuses more on data governance, like really on the business part, on the data responsibility roles, and on the assignment, and it's less strong in the technical metadata. So why is this important? I think it's really important to know, okay, which tool would I select for a given use case, and especially what functionality criteria does this tool fulfill. And here is the requirements catalog. We are currently serving different tools, like what is their capability in metadata management. And unfortunately for today, I cannot provide you the final results. It's just ongoing research. And also hi here to Johannes and Jasmin from the Johannes Kepler University. They're actually doing the rough work here. Like, it's really a lot of data, and it's really exciting stuff where you can see all these different functionalities the tool offer. But to come down to what we actually want to compare. So on the one hand, of course, we want to compare the ability of these tools to manage technical metadata. For example, how many data sources can be connected, or how strong are these tools in data lineage and data profiling. And on the other hand, how strong is the capability to model business metadata. And I experienced personally that most tools, they allow you to tag and add tags to technical metadata. But this is really not sufficient, because adding tags doesn't mean we can combine these tags. And this is also why we would like to have such a business metadata management to allow to relate concepts, to build links between concepts, and also, for example, things like attributes of these concepts and inheritance, for example. At least for very complex company domain ontologies, I would say, or domain models, you really need this. So this is not something you can get around and you say, okay, we do not really need it. So in my perception, like when you get to a real-world use case, you need this kind of concepts. And on the right-hand side, I just put an excerpt, or actually it's the list of the FAIR principles that is also available online. And that brings me to one of our research we have just published. It's actually, so it has been developed for the last few years, but this is actually an attempt to model data sources in a highly expressive way. Because current data catalogs, they sometimes they have the ability to model data sources, but not in a very detailed way. And I will come to this slide in a bit. Let me jump back. This is actually the use case, coming back to the use case of Pira Innovation, where they purchased a data catalog, in this case the Informatica data catalog, and it allows domain experts to annotate data domains, so to tag the technical metadata. But, for example, relationships could not be directly attended at that point, and there were also some data types missing. So we said, well, if you don't, if you need this high expressiveness, we tried to build a semantic data model on top. And we used, of course, it was a research project, we tried to use the most expressive way, like using open standards like RDF and OWL, Open Web Semantic Standards. And therefore, like on the one hand side, we built this domain-specific ontology, but the challenge was how can we connect it to the data catalog? Because of course we want to use the ability, like the strong ability of the data catalog to catalog all your data and to provide all your data. And this was the point where we developed Gold Case, and part of Gold Case is, of course, let me go back to describe all these data sources. And I think this is really crucial to have a standardized description of your data sources that can be reused across platforms, also across data catalogs, because this is the only way. Also, I heard some companies struggle having different data catalogs in place when you want to create a single source of access and you want to reuse the information residing in different data catalog tools. Yes, that's the very simplified version of the domain ontology. Of course, I cannot publish it here, but I think it reflects on how to model the example I have shown at the very beginning. It shows very well that we can model these concepts, motorbike and warranty claim, which are connected in both directions. And while for a business user, these concepts, they appear very easily and direct accessible, in the back they're mapped to multiple data sources which can be automatically connected. And if you query, for example, your motorbike, in the end the query is resolved via multiple databases. So that's it about metadata management. So coming back to the title of this talk, why do we need this for data quality? And we've also heard some interesting sessions earlier this morning about automating data quality, and I also think it only works with metadata if you want to scale it, because otherwise you have all these rules. People write rules normally, and that doesn't really scale. So what's the solution here? Like, we want to automate the process in first doing data profiling, getting all this metadata, this contextual information on the data out. And this is, for example, very simplified statistics, also like number of nulls, number of rows, and so on. And these are then the building blocks for your data quality metrics. And this is one of my current research personally, where I really would like to go forward in how to define and measure these measurements. Not on a very high level, I think there are a lot of concepts there on a very high level, but on a lower level that can be actually reused and contextualized. So thank you very much. This brings me to the end of my talk, leaving some room for questions and discussions. And to sum it up, automated data quality assurance really requires contextual knowledge, contextual information about the data, which can be on the one hand the technical metadata that's really easy to gather, but on the other hand the business metadata, which needs to be provided by human experts, but in a machine-readable way that can be connected to the technical metadata. And surrounding everything, I think it's really of utmost importance, really to build a strategy, a useful data strategy around. Just buying a data catalog, setting it into place doesn't really work, because you need the people that are assigned to specific roles. You need the data consumers and the data producers, also as Tom Redman highlights it, that actually fulfill this with life. And our research outlook is on the one hand, referring back to the DSD vocabulary, to incorporate open standards, not only trying these open web standards, but also EDI standards, also HL75 from the health industry domain, and ISO IC standards in data catalogs. I think standardization is a really important thing. And of course, as I highlighted before, to come up with metrics to automatically collect metadata. And with this, I would like to conclude with a quote from Dr. John Talbot, that providing data with incomplete metadata is actually data littering. Thank you.
We have one, thank you, Lisa. We have one online question. I'm not sure I understand the online question, so whoever wrote it, I'd ask you just to rewrite it for me while we take questions from the room. Does anyone? All right.
Well, what's your proposal for legacy data? Which there may be no expert, left in your company who understands the data set. So how do you get metadata for legacy data?
It's a really good question. I think, to be honest, LLMs might help us here, especially in the NLP part, to crawl data. But as we all know, the results are not really reliable. But this would be the first thing to really go for. We in our company have actually really nice success in observing legacy code and explaining legacy code with LLMs. It's of course a little bit of a risky thing, but I think this might be now at the current time the way to go.
Hopefully I can make this into a meaningful question. I've been using the terminology data products here, where you're sort of building out context around specific data entities and identifying the data that comes in and supports that. I see what you're describing here as a lot of that context, that glue that should be there built around our data products so the users would understand them. But I'm also interpreting your work as maybe a little more general. You might not have a specific data product in mind for formalization, but maybe a more general search capability for users. Can you talk a little bit about the specificity of what you're after? Is it targeted on specific data products and enabling those? Over.
Okay, thanks. I hope I understood it right, but our aim is to really have a generic approach and classifying the tools according to their strengths and weaknesses, and on the other hand side, providing companies with recommendations. So for example, if you're searching for a tool that's extremely strong in technical metadata management, go for this tool, or if you have rather like to have the expressivity of high business modeling, then go for the other tool. And currently, there's no tool that solves all these data problems, of course. but classifying them a little bit and creating a high-level model on what do we expect with metadata management, what do we want to get out of it. And actually, I have a poll online on WOVA, so if you haven't checked that, please give it a try. A few minutes before the end, I would like to just resolve it here, because I'm also curious on
I was going to mention the poll. I've taken it twice. I used the this laptop and also my own Huva. So we have a question here.
Great talk. Thank you. So you mentioned the development of an ontology for that use case at Pure, and I was wondering if you could share some of your primary considerations when you're working to do that in a use case or in a situation or a domain where there aren't any existing standards, or there need to be a curation of gap to those standards to round that ontology out. So what are the main things that you should think about?
I think the first thing to think about is if you need the expressiveness, because modeling and ontology is really, really complex, and it requires a lot of time, and a lot of time to also talk to the domain experts, get the knowledge and model it right. And this is really not easy. I think there are just easier modeling tools that you can reuse. And if they're sufficient for your use case, use those. Like modeling and ontology is really there if you have a very high complex use case where you struggle with all the other things in order to represent it. But then I think it's a really good way to go, but just prepare for complexity that will in the end help you to automate specific things, because you, as ontology, the open web standard is actually reusable by many of these tools, which is really nice. So we can reuse the information from there and use it for example, for building data quality metrics.
Thank you.
We have about 2 minutes left. Do I have another question, Solomon, or anyone else?
There was one. Okay.
Coming back to semantics, I think it's very important, and actually I find it's largely under discussed here also in this community. Do you see any approaches to actually see some, I don't know, industry-wide ontologies or something that could actually help not doing all the same thing several times? So anything?
Very good point. So on the one hand side, there are some data catalog tools using semantic technology. And on the other hand, there are many ontologies out there. I think what really needs to be done is to have some curation, because sometimes they're built for a specific use case, but they're not widely adopted. And so what I perceived in my work, you cannot directly reuse them. So the reusability is lacking, and also some kind of open search engine for ontologies where you can really say, okay, for example, according to the FAIR principle, I verify my ontology against the FAIR principle, I publish it there, some other people can get it, much like into the data spaces idea. Actually, I think this goes into this direction, and we are far from there, honestly. What I've also seen, and this is very recent and very interesting for me, is that many companies build their own semantic web stack, and they are using it internally, really governed and really strategic, and I think this is currently a more promising way.
We almost have a minute left. We have one question back here. I know there's some others. We can do those at the end after we turn off, but do you want to go?
Sure. Thank you very much. Gilles from MIT. My question is related to the business metadata. Are you extracting it from, let's say, a Visio document that has a description of a business process, right? That explain what the process should be and then map it to your data? Or do you ask people to build an ontology to describe what their work is and what the process is? Because ultimately, I mean, I see it, I don't need to look far. The documentation gets out of date. The software gets updated. And so there's a asynchronous metadata between what the business thinks they're doing, and they're moving faster, and there's a delay with the application. And there's exceptions getting entered into that system. So what are your thoughts in terms of how to use that tool to monitor data quality and change across the organization for reporting analytics purposes?
You're pointing at a very challenging aspect in general. So I still expect users, first to answer that question, I still expect users to at least supervise it. Like I think you still need users to add business metadata, but if you have some information in place, you can make suggestions. So for example, you're referring to the processes. If you have some really nice process management there and you have these high-level processes already documented in a machine-readable way, please reuse it and make suggestions for your model. But in the end, you still need people that are responsible to supervise it, to monitor it, and to really verify that this is the current state. And I think there's no way around than doing this regularly.
Thank you, Professor. And thank you to everybody who joined us today. That concludes the session. I think Lisa will be available up here for a few minutes if you want to talk with her and ask any questions we didn't get to. I was just speaking with her before the conference before the session about whether people should model or systems should be used to develop some of these, extract these models. And I think I'd love to talk about what you asked a second ago. So thank you.
Thank you.